Hello, and how are you? Welcome to our second session of our first lecture of learning how to create mobile application using Flutter. So in the previous lecture, in the previous session, we were able to get introduced to Flutter, how to set up environment. That programming language, of course, as well as Flutter, how to set up your programming environment. And also got started with the basics of that programming. So in this lecture, or in this session, I'm going to introduce you to one important software that you will always need as a developer, and for version controlling, and that is GitHub. So this software will help you to keep this software will help you to keep your code together. It will help you to collaborate with others. Even if you make changes in your code, that software will always help you to do what to be able to track back on the changes that you'll have made. So that is GitHub. So in this video, we're going to concentrate on learning how to make use of GitHub. I'd like to upload this video right now, so we learn as it is uploading, so we can be able to reuse these videos for later. Let me upload this one. All right. So if you already know GitHub, well and good. If you are new to GitHub, still no problem. I'm going to teach you how GitHub works. So first things first, GitHub is a software that helps you to manage Git. So Git is now a core software that helps you to manage your file changes or repositories. So I'm going to just give you the basics that you can get started with Git. However, it's a complete and very wide software that you can use for so many things. So now to use Git, first things first, you'll have to install Git in your computer. So to install Git, just simply search for Git and then go ahead and download Git. Click on Git and then click on download. So go ahead and download Git. So I'm using Mac operating system. So go ahead and click on download Git. So if you're using different operating system, still you can switch to another operating system that you want, and then whoever here will automatically recommend it for you. Whoever can download another type by just simply clicking on downloads, and you'll be able to see different types of operating system that this Git supports. So if you're using Windows, go ahead and do Windows. If you're using Linux, go ahead and do Linux. Here I'm using Mac, so I'll click on Mac and then I'll go ahead and do it and download for Mac. So once you've downloaded the GitHub software, go ahead. So if you're using Mac, you can install it like this. Just say brew install in your terminal, brew install, and say Git. So by doing so, it will be able to install GitHub in your computer and follow these steps. They're just simple steps. You may already have it, so I don't need to install it again. If you're using Windows, it is simple as well to install it in Windows. Just simply click on downloads and then go ahead and say download for Windows, and then go ahead and select your operating system. If it is 64-bit, go ahead and download 64-bit. If you're using 32-bit, go ahead and download it for 32 bits and then install it. So that is the Git itself, installing Git in your computer. So after installing Git in your computer, you should be able to run this. So if you go to your terminal, you should be able to run Git and see these results, okay, and see things like this one. If you are not able to do that, please go ahead and search for help on YouTube. There are so many videos. Even me, I created a video that I show step by step how to install Git, so you can watch those videos until you're able to run Git in your terminal and you're able to get things like these ones. So, or you can just simply say Git and then put -- version. You should be able to get the version of the Git that is on your computer. So this is my current version that I'm using, 2.4.2. 2.42.0. Alright, so after installing Git, So if you don't want to suffer with the terminal things, commands, the next thing you can just simply install GitHub now itself. So GitHub, so ahead and say GitHub and say put GitHub for desktop. So if you say GitHub for desktop, it is going to install for you an interface that will help you to manage your Git with simplicity. So for me, I'm using Mac, so I can just simply say download for Mac. If you're using Windows, it will automatically detect your operating system and put for you Windows. However, you can change to any other operating system if you want. Alright, so I can just simply go ahead and say download GitHub. But I already have GitHub in my computer, so I don't need to download it. So if you don't have it, go ahead and click on download. When it finishes downloading, go ahead and install it. So after installing GitHub, you'll have something like this. You'll have something that looks similar to this one. Alright? That looks similar to this one. Might not look like this exactly, but should be looking similar to this one. Now, after doing so, the next thing that we'll do, you'll need an account for GitHub, because a copy of our projects will be saved on internet. So to create an account for GitHub, just simply go to your browser and search github.com and go to github.com. So when you go to github.com, for example, me, I've opened GitHub in my incognito, so I'm seeing like a new user. Go ahead and sign up. Go ahead and do what? And sign up for GitHub account. Sign up for GitHub account is very simple. Just simply click on sign up here. So when you click on sign up, it will enable you to register yourself. Go ahead and enter your email. Go ahead and enter your email if it's new. If you're already in there, you can just go ahead and log in. If you've forgotten your password, you can request for the password reset. So register your email, your username and password. And then by the end of the day, you'll be registered on GitHub. So when you're registered on GitHub, things will look like this. You'll be able to access your what? Your panel. So upon this registration steps, they'll ask you to select your username. So your username, it will enable you to have your projects in one URL or in one section. So if you want to manage your projects, for example, my username is Mubahood. So all my projects that are in public, you can find them there. All right, you can find them there. So as well as private one, or if you have the access. So you can have followers. For example, I have 49 followers. Can you tell them who they are? So you can have settings where you can make your settings here, etc. I'll not take you in details, okay? However, GitHub, it is a place where you'll be keeping your repositories. So today's assignment, I'll give you an assignment where I'll ask you to create your GitHub and give me the link for your GitHub, so you should be able to see your first project of GitHub. So after you have registered on GitHub and logged in, if you have an account, the next thing is to do what? Is to log in into your GitHub software. That desktop software that we installed on our computer, you should now be able to log into it. So to log in into it, you just simply click there. Here on file. Okay, sorry, here. And then you go to settings. And then if you don't have an account, you'll see here a button to say login. Okay? Go ahead and say login. So they'll ask you to open your browser. Log in the browser. And that's all. That's all how you set up your GitHub. So try it out. You should be able to do what? You should be able to have your GitHub up and running in your what? In your computer. Alright, so me have finished doing that. So the next thing will be now to put my project on GitHub. So the question is now, how do you put our projects on GitHub? So to put your project on GitHub, it is very simple. There are so many ways of how you can do that. You can just simply come here and say new project. So in GitHub, we don't call them project, we call them repositories. So just simply come here to repositories tab and say new repository. So your code, your assignments, you'll be submitting them through GitHub. That's why I'm introducing you to this. However, you'll never regret why you learn GitHub. So go ahead and create here your repository. That is one way of creating a repository. So another way of creating a repository is just simply come and get your folder. For example, this is a folder called learn.dat. So this learn.dat folder, I'm going to drag and drop it in what? In GitHub software that we just installed. So just drag and drop it. Our LAN folder, it has three files that we're creating. You can see them there. So let me drag and drop it there. So in a drag and drop it there, to give me a warning that this repository, I mean this folder that I've downloaded, that I've dropped there, is not identified as a repository. And then they'll ask me, do I need to create a new repository? I can say yes, let me create a new repository. So that is how you can create a new repository. I can give it a name, and then for example I can say LAN.dat 2024. That can be the name of my repository. LAN.dat programming language or something like that. LAN.dat programming language. So make sure that repository does not have space. So I can say LAN.dat programming 2024. That can be the name of my repository. Alright, so after doing so, I can give here some description about my repository. You can explain it any way that you want. Then you can go ahead. So I can go ahead and say create repository. So if I create repository, now this repository, it is having everything that GitHub does. I mean, so that Git does. However, it is not online yet. It is not on my internet. So if my computer gets lost right now, I can't be able to recover this repository or the code in the repository. So if I want to be able to recover the code in the repository, so what I'll have to do is to publish it online so it can be on my GitHub. So I just simply say publish repository, and then they ask me which name do I need to give it. So I can put here LAN.dat programming language. I can say LAN.dat programming 2024. So that is the name of my repository. I go ahead and do what? And publish it. Oh, one thing that I forgot. I wanted to make this repository to be public so you people can be able to access it and review. However, you can change it as well. So I'm going to change it to be public so you can be able to see it. So there was a checkbox that I was supposed to check to make it public, but it's okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my repositories online in my browser, and if I refresh here, I'll be able to see that there's a very new repository that has been added. So it means that if I click on this repository, you'll be able to see that the files that we added, they are here. So that is how we do what? That is how we create a new repository, get it registered, and push it online. So pushing, it means that you're pushing something to go online. Every change that you make, you'll have to commit it. Commit it, it means that you confirm the changes that you've made. It's not a mistake. So that's what we call committing. I'll show you how we commit as well. So after committing, you push online. So pushing online means that you're sending your changes to the internet or to the GitHub itself online. So I want to make this a repository to be public so you can be able to access it. So I can just simply come here on this particular repositories and I click on setting, and then I go to where there is so I just say go to settings. So then click on settings, so I'll go to bottom here. I'll see where there is change visibility, and I change visibility and make it public. So I confirm that I want to make it public, I understand, and then submit, and then this repository will be accessible to anyone on internet, even you. Now if you visit it, you'll be able to see your repository. So this is the link for my repository. If I go ahead and click here, I'll be able to see the code for my repository. So that is that simple introduction to GitHub. So the assignment that I'll give you, it will be you creating your GitHub repository, as well as adding them to an Excel file that I'm going to give you. Alright, so it means that now every code that I write, I can push a copy of it and it goes on what? On internet. So Visual Studio Code, it comes with a GitHub, you can go ahead and log in here to your GitHub. Just simply click on account and say, if you're not logged in, you just simply say login with GitHub. So if you log in with GitHub, you'll have this icon whereby you can just simply make your changes and then comment on those changes. After commenting them, you can confirm the comments and go ahead and do what we call syncing, or you go ahead and push those comments to online. So that is how we deal with GitHub. All right, so this is my real repository. Let me just, I'm not making any change, so when you make changes it will be coming here. All right, so that is how we create that is how we create repositories. That's how I create repositories on GitHub. So if I make changes, GitHub will be able to detect that I've made changes. For example, you see here there's no changes. So let's see the next topic and we see how GitHub will. Okay, let's say that I've made the changes. So I can say this is a simple change. So if I save, I come back to GitHub, I'll find that GitHub has already detected the changes that I'll have done. So what I'll do, I'll have to commit. So I'll write here just a comment. I write it and then I press commit. So pressing commit, I go ahead and push. So this is where you push from. Just push. So by doing so, it will save you not to do what? To use terminal. You can just simply use that simple interface. So if I come here and refresh and I open that file that I've just commented on, I'll be able to see that this is the change that I was added online. So that is how we manage the GitHub. I've told you how to create a new repository, how to create an account. I've shown you how to install GitHub. I've shown you how to create an account on GitHub or login. I've shown you how to install the GitHub for desktop. I've shown you how to log into GitHub for desktop. I've shown you how you create a new repository. I've shown you how you publish a repository. I've shown you how you push your changes. I've shown you how do you commit. I've shown you how you publish. You push your changes. I've shown you how you pull. So to pull is just go to GitHub terminal and just and I type in git then space and then say pull. So to get the changes that are online and put them on your computer. However, you can as well come here and just simply say fetch now. It will go ahead and pull the changes that are on the online and include them in the computer. So once you have those things that I've talked, there are basics that you will need to get started with GitHub. So with that much said, let's go now today. Let's proceed now to a real action. So your task will be to do those things that I've shown you and then give me the link for the repositories that you will be using to practice your GitHub, your Dart learning programming language. Alright, so let's proceed to today's business. So this is how we do greater than, less than. Let me show you an example of each relational operators. Just simply create a new file. I don't want to include spaces in my file. .dat, and then I go ahead and say main, and then I'm going to do an example of each of these ones. Alright, so let's see how we can do example of each of these. So we're going to have, for example, A as 10 and then B as 20. So this is how we do greater than sign. Okay, just simply say A is greater than B. So the answer will be false. This is how we do less than sign. Just simply say A is less than B, and then the answer will be true. Alright, so this is how we do equal to, less than or equal to. Alright, so this one will check less than or equal to, and then this is how we do greater than, this is greater than or equal to, this is less than or equal to, This is the equality, checking if it is equal, and then this is checking if it is not equal. Yeah, so the output will be false for greater, and then this one will be true for less than, and then this one will be false, of course. This one is not greater than or equal to b, since a is 10, and then this one will be for less than or equal to, and this one will show if these two are equal, and then this one will be for what? For not equal. Check things if they're not equal, and the answer is true because they're not equal. So that is how we do operations. So let me go ahead and run this file and you see. So I'll open my terminal and then go ahead and do dot and then put space and then put 4 dot whatever the name of the file and press enter, and then we shall see that our things are functioning as how we expect them. So that is how we do a simple example of showing how we can perform operation. I mean, we can use these logic operators to perform different logics in the app or in the system or in the code that you'll be creating. Yeah, so you can watch those very carefully and make sure that you understand them. All right, so let's proceed to. So this is how we make AND. To make something, if it has an AND, bitwise AND, this one how we make an O, bitwise O, then bitwise ZO, and then bitwise NOT, and then shift, and then sign operating. So let's proceed to now how we do it, how we this level, how we loop. Okay, so we're going to learn loops. So we have, like in C programming, we have 3 types of loops. We have a for loop. All right, you have a for loop. It has an end. We have to define where it will stop. And then we have indefinite loop, where we cannot define where they will stop. However, the decision will be made when the loop is actually running. So we have a while loop and a do while loop. So in those two, I'm going to demonstrate for you each of these ones so you can understand how they function. However, you can learn beyond and see how you can make better use of them. So let's go ahead and we go through the different loops. So I'm going to create here a new file, as I told you that every file, every example will have its own file, and that's how I want you to do so. So 5, I'll just simply say loop for dot that. So I'm beginning the word, so let me just say for loop, no problem, since I'm already using the numbers too. So I can say for loop. Alright, so I'll go ahead and create our main function, and then our for loop, as I told you, it will have a beginning and the end. So to create a for loop, this is how it is done. We just simply say it has 3 sections. So the first section, we initialize the variable that we're going to use. So if the variable is not initialized, we can still leave it like this. Okay, so initialize the variable. The next section, you put the logic that will end the loop. For example, making sure that the loop does not go beyond 10. So you just simply say I should always be less than 10. So by doing so, it will make sure that as soon as the I reaches 9, it is equal to 10, it will go ahead and do it and stop the loop. And then we have I++, so I++ is increasing. So you can display the values like that. So by just say print and then you display the values. So let's run our file. So our file, I can just simply say that, and then put that, and then put 5 dot, press in, and then press enter. You can see that our loop is able to run from 0 up to 9. However, you can write it even in the negative direction. Just make sure that the condition of breaking the loop is always reached. Otherwise, if you don't take care of the condition of breaking the loop, then what does it mean? It means that the loop will loop infinitely, okay, where it cannot reach at the end. So that is for loop for you. However, you can write it even in different ways. By, for example, let's say I already have int x equals to 50. Alright, I'll just simply say for, and then I open. So now x is already defined, so I can just simply put a semicolon like this, okay? So I can say x is greater than maybe 0, and then say x minus minus. So I mean that it's going to reduce on x until it does what? Until it reaches a 0, like that, and then it stops. So that is another way how we can write the for loop. I mean the for loop. So if I've done so, you'll see that it has begun from top here, and then it goes down until it is 1. So that is how you can play with for loops. However, they are very important, so you have to understand them, and they are not so complicated. Alright, so let's go ahead and practice the do while loop. And I mean, let's begin with the while loop, and then after we shall conclude with do and while loop. Alright, so I'll just simply come here and say new file. I can just use that very file and I save it as. So to save this file as, I just simply press Ctrl-Shift-S and save it, for example, as number 6, and then put here while loop. So let's go ahead and demonstrate while loop. Can just remove these others. Alright, so while loop, to demonstrate it, you just simply initialize the value. For example, I can say int (1 equal to 0), and then you say while. So this is the syntax. You first write the word while, and then open bracket and put the reason to which it will be satisfied first. So it will not be satisfied. So it will be satisfied in order to break. So you see here the question is while it will not be, once the reason is no longer valid, it will break. So it is saying that while I is less than 5, execute this code. So executing the code as you're increasing the what? The 1. So when 1 goes beyond 5, it will go ahead and stop. Okay? When the when the I is 5. So let's go ahead and run this. So that is a simple while loop. Okay? That's how we do just while loop in simply like that. So let's go ahead and run it. Clear my console. So I'll go ahead and do dirt, put space, and then put 6 dots. Press enter. So you see it has ran as how we expected it. So one more thing here that you should always take note. Always make sure that this I does not go beyond. Is within the what? The condition. Otherwise, if this condition is not reached, then it means that the loop will be infinite. It will not It will not end. So that is a while loop for you. You can play with it in different ways. Let's go ahead and do the do while. Members, I hope you're there. I hope you're following. Are you there? Members, are you following?
Yes, we are.
Alright, that's good. Alright, so let's proceed to the do while. So let me just duplicate this, Ctrl-Shift-S, and then put here do while loop. Alright, so do while loop. Let me rename this. Rename it to number 7. Like that. So how do you do while loop? Okay. How we do while loop? We just simply say do. So after saying do, we go ahead and start executing. Okay. And then at the end of the bracket, you put while or you put the condition that will break your bracket. So every time it runs, it will come and change this bracket. So I go ahead and say while I is less than 10, always do this. So it will come for the first time, it increases it prints I as how it has come, and then it increases it by 1, so it will be 2. So 2 is less than 10, so it will come for the second time. And go ahead and increase 2 by 1 to become 3. So after displaying that 2, it come and check this one. So 3 is less than 10. It goes ahead and keep the same one, the same thing until this condition is wrong. Then we'll go ahead and do what? And stop. So let's go ahead and run this and we see. So I'll say that, put there, that and put 7. Press enter. So you see that our do while loop is working. So do while loop here, one thing that you should learn with it will always execute even if the condition is wrong. At least it will execute a 1 record. Why? Because with do while loop, you first execute and then you do what? And then you compare. But for the while loop and for loop, for the for loop, it will first for the for loop it will first compare, as you can see here. It will first compare, then it does what? Then it plays. So it means that if the condition is wrong for the for loop, it will not do what? It will not even display a single variable. So there are different scenarios that you might need to use these different kind of loops in any way. Alright, so that is a do while loop and while loops. So I would say that the loops are done. However, you can learn you can search much more information about them online. Let's proceed to decision making. That is, those are the if statements. So we have 3 types of if statements. We have if statement, it will check if something is valid or not. Then we have the if else. So if one thing is not valid, it will go ahead and run the else one. And then we have the else if. It will check if different things are if different conditions are valid, okay, without executing any piece of code in a certain bracket. That is else if, and it will start from top. So if you have 2 else ifs, it means that one can overshadow the other. Then we have switch. So switch statements, it helps us to switch statements just like the way it sounds. So it is also in Python. So let's go ahead and look at examples of these statements. So I'll go ahead and put decision making. Alright, so let me go ahead and say new file and call it file number what? Number 8 dot and put that. Alright, so why did it come on top again? There's a space. Okay. Alright, so now let's go ahead and demonstrate these if conditions. Alright, so I'll just simply come here and just simply say so this is how ifs are written. Just simply say if. They're just like, they're much more of Java kind of. So that one checks if 10 is greater than what? Than 5. So of course the answer will be true. Okay, it checks if 10, if it's A is greater than B, and then to execute one of them. That is the else one, if and then else, in that way. Alright, so we proceed to else if. So here it checks if A is greater than B, it go ahead and execute this, and then checks if B is greater than C, it go ahead and execute this. And then if those two are not correct, then it will go ahead and execute the last one to say that C is the biggest. So that is how you can elaborate. And then lastly is the case. This is how we do what? We make use of case. So you have your condition, for example, a number or string, and then go ahead and say switch. So you put here the variable that you want to switch, and then print. I will do some logic that you want. If you want this to stop there, just simply write break, so it will not run any part in the in the Excel. So okay, so now let's go ahead and run it, and you see. So you can see 10 is greater than 5, B is greater than A, C is greater than B. So that is how, and then here, you see here, we are switching these these numbers to their respective words. And you see, it is working fine. Alright, so I'll push those changes so you can be able to access them. Okay, so we proceed. Our time is up almost. And the next lecture, I'll request you to go and read ahead. The next lecture will begin from the list. Go to maps, go to function, and then you go to object-oriented programming. That will be in the next lecture. So the assignment is going to be, I'm going to give you the GitHub form. I'm going to give you the Google sheet or the form, Google form, where you're going to submit your repositories for GitHub. So everyone's going to create an account of GitHub, and then you create a repository where you'll be using to learn that. And then that repository, you send me its link on the Excel that I'm going to share with you. So that's it for today, members, unless there is a question. Members, any question, any comments? So you see here, I've pushed. So I've pushed my changes. So now if I come to the members, so I've pushed my changes, so you'll be able to find them online. So I'd like to hear from you, members, any comments, any question before we go.
Excuse me, sir.
Okay. One should say. Okay, can you speak up? If someone has a comment.
I was asking, when we were perusing through the data types of that, there is one called the dynamic data type. How does it work?
Dynamic data type, it accepts all kinds of data type. For it is dynamic. You can even store a null value. So you see, if I come here, let me show you. For example, let's say I create a variable called string equals to, and then I go ahead and create a variable called, for example, int age. So with integers or string, if I try to say age equals to name, I'll get an error that cannot be, is not accepted unless I say unless I pass it and change it to integer. So if I say name equals to age, it is not accepted still. So those are limited to that. However, dynamic, you can just simply say weight, for example, equals to dynamic. And then, for example, weight is dynamic, you can keep even string, okay? You can keep the name, you see, without any problem. It can be null, you see. However, for integers, you cannot make it a null variable. That's not acceptable. See? So dynamic data type, it will be able to help you to keep everything of different structure, and you first have it there, and then you can now pass it slowly by slowly. For example, let's say you're creating an app that will be having an API. So things, when they come from API, you have to know whether it's a JSON or not. You can first keep them in a dynamic data type, and then you start passing them while they are saved in a dynamic data type, because for it will accept any type of a what? Any type of a value. Hope I've answered you.
Yes, sir.
Any other person?
Yes. I have a question.
Yes, ask please.
Yes. I'm seeing at the bottom of the VS Code there's where it is showing 1 hour coding, 1 hour debugging, 16 minutes browsing. How did you add that to your VS Code?
That is another thing, eh? It's called worker time. It will calculate the time that you're spending on computer working. Yeah, it is good for programmers. It's available for Android Studio, for Visual Studio Code. So it is worker time. You can just go and register there. So you'll have a dashboard when you click there. So you install that extension in your code, in Visual Studio Code, called worker time. See here, worker time. This one. You install it. Then after you log in, you create an account on their website, worker time, and then you log in. And once you log in, every minute that you spend coding, it will be noting it down. So to tell you how many hours you've spent coding today. So these are different hours that I've been coding in a week. So I code this day, I code for 9 hours. This day I code for 9 hours. I used to code for 18 hours, 16 hours, 15 hours. Here they give you projects that has spent much of your time, which programming language you're using most, how much time did you spend on a particular project, which computer you're using, Windows or what. It has a loader board. So here in loader boards, you're able to see in the whole world which position you hold in terms of coding, the time that you spend while coding. So you can add it in Android Studio. It is available for Android Studio. You can add it in Visual Studio Code. Yeah, it can be good for you to. You have a dashboard. You have a profile where you can view yourself. So I can just, this is the loader board. So me, I'm here, I'm 4,000. I'm in that position. So if I want to see Ugandans that are on worker time, I can click here. So in Uganda, I'm the 16th in coding. I used to be the first, but these past 2 days, I'm not coding, I'm doing other things. So here I'll be able to see where you stand in Uganda, in the whole Uganda. So I'm 16th right now, wherever I'm supposed to be on top here. Yeah, so that is worker time, and it's the one that is displaying this time that I've spent here. It will tell you the time that you're browsing, the time that you're coding. So you can try it out. It is good. It can keep you motivated and also see where you fall. Alright, I hope there's no more comments, members. Today I'll not take attendance. I'll take in the next lecture. So Dr. Drake will share with you the video, the link of the video, and also the assignment task. It is just not assignment, just a simple task where you'll have to create your repository and